Hello, welcome to iHeart Cooking. I'm registered dietitian Jennifer Stachler.
And I'm Chef Dugan Wetzel.
We are both from Reid Hospital. Today's program is brought to you by a grant from the American Heart Association and is also brought to you by Reid Hospital, WCTV, RPNL. Our live audience joining us today is the volunteers from Reid Hospital. Today on iHeart Cooking, we're going to be making homemade broths and chicken and vegetable soup. iHeart Cooking, we're going to be making some homemade broths. We're going to explain a vegetable broth and a chicken broth. In the process of that, we're also going to be making a chicken and vegetable soup. But the first thing we really want to discuss before we get into the whole chicken broth and chicken stock is how do you cut up a whole chicken? So Chef Dugan's going to kind of explain this for us.
As you can see here, you can pick these up at a store. I know a lot of people are kind of afraid to cook whole chickens. It's easier to buy the pre-frozen chicken breasts or the chicken legs and things like that. But I'll show you, it's actually really easy. The chicken kind of just does the work for you, and it can also save you some money too. So as you can see here, I've got a half a chicken breast. I've already went ahead and cut up a couple different pieces, and you can deconstruct it even more than this. This is just a simple way to kind of show you, a couple of the pieces. This is your chicken breast, your tenderloin, your wings, and then your legs and your thighs. And I've went ahead with this half chicken here and I pulled the skin off just so you could see at home what I'm going to be talking about. Because when the skin's on there, it's a little difficult to see everything. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to start with the leg and the thigh. If you lift here, you can see, show you at home, there's just a little opening with some skin there. You want to use a really sharp knife on this because you'll let gravity do the work for you. As you can see, I'm not really putting any pressure on there, but I'm working through all the skin and all the fat until I get to the bone. And what you want to do is find out where that joint is and kind of just pull it back until you hear it pop. I'm sure you guys heard that in the audience. Yeah. Okay, now that you know that the joint or the bone's out of that joint there, you can kind of see it. You're going to fold it back and kind of work along the side here. As you can see, there's a little line there, tendons and fat. You just want to work along it, nice and easy, and it'll start to come apart for you. Now once you get down towards the end there, you're actually going to have to cut through the bone. So another reason for a sharp knife is it makes it so much easier. As you can see, that slid right through it, and there's your leg and your thigh piece. The next one that we're going to work on is the wing, this little part right here. Same thing. You're going to see right here is where your joint is. I'm going to pull it until I hear it pop. There. Okay, now that one's kind of quiet, but it's out, I'm going to start working around the joint with the knife until I can see it. And I'm just going to kind of slowly pop it out. There we go. Again, you're going to have to cut through some bone, so it's important to use a sharp knife. All right, and now the last part that we're going to show you is the breast itself. The thing that I like the most about the breast is you can sit it right there on the cavity, so it's vertical, and you work along the bone at the top. And again, you don't really need to apply too much pressure, because as soon as you start peeling the meat away from the bone, gravity kicks in, and it starts pulling the breast away from the bone. Nice and easy. Just take your time, because you're going to be working with a sharp knife. You don't want to cut yourself. And something that will come along with this breast is the chicken tenderloin. A lot of people eat chicken strips. That's the most popular piece of the chicken for the tenderloin. It's actually connected to the breast. You can see it at home. It's this piece right here. For you in the audience, it's connected. All you need to do is just grab it, and it'll slide right off the breast itself. So you've got the chicken breast right here ready to go, and you also have the tender. Something very simple, very easy. Put it in a little bit of panko, put it in the oven, bake it off, and there's a quick, simple meal for you right there. Healthy.
Yep, homemade chicken nuggets basically, or chicken strips right there.
Absolutely. A lot of broths and stocks, you use the bones. So one good thing about the carcass and chicken, buying a whole chicken, is you can use the whole thing. You can put the whole carcass in if you want, or you can use, wings, whatever you feel like. Today we're just going to use the actual pieces here, and we're going to discard the carcass. So. Okay.
Now while kind of Dugan's cleaning up here, he has everything separated with the whole chicken, and we can use the whole chicken for both the broth and the actual chicken and vegetable soup. So we're using it for multiple things. And like Dugan kind of mentioned earlier, whatever we don't use, you can always freeze it and have it for a handy meal quick and easy later to make other multiple meals. So with the chicken broth now, one thing about the recipe that we have provided from the American Heart Association is they actually take the chicken bones and they actually roast it in the oven. They do that to draw out more flavor. You don't have to actually do that process. I just actually put the actual chicken into the broth and cook it in there. But if you want to put it in the oven, get it a little bit roasted before you use that, you can do that. That does be about 400 degrees, and for about an hour you would put those in there. To save some time, since we have busy lives, we're going to skip that step, and we actually already started making some of the broth for you. One thing nice about chicken broth is you use some onions, some carrots, some celery. One nice thing is for the celery, you can use the whole entire stalk. So when you buy the whole celery, you can use the leaves and everything. So you put the whole thing right in there. Onions, Dugan cut it up because we wanted to start making it before you came. He just quartered them, put the whole thing in there. We're just drawing the flavor out of these. And then carrots, you can buy the whole carrots. We have the baby carrots. You can put the whole bag of baby carrots or the whole entire carrot, cut it up, put it in there. And then put some water in there and just start boiling it. And then we're going to add the chicken to it. So we're eliminating a whole hour of the process from the recipe to make it a little bit quicker, because that's something, again, a lot of us are short on time with our busy lives.
Now one tip, Jennifer was talking about using the onions, carrots, and celery. What I was taught is there's a ratio that you need to follow. 2-1-1 is what I've always been told, and that is 2 onions per 1 celery, 1 carrot. So if you use a half cup of onion, you're going to use a 1/4 cup of the celery and carrot. The reason for that is so that the flavors, that's a good melding of the flavors. You're not going to overpower with onion, you're not going to overpower with celery or carrot. Now if you like celery or carrot, by all means, put 3-1-1, whatever you feel like. Nobody's telling you that you can't do that. But that's just, if you want the vegetable flavor itself as a combination, 2-1-1 is a good ratio to go by.
And we're just putting all that chicken in there, and we're going to let it cook a while. So you're probably going to want to put this on high. You can cover it. Covering it kind of speeds up that cooking process. And you're probably going to let this on the stove or stovetop for anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes until it's cooked through. Also, along with this, of course, we're going to want to flavor it. One thing about a lot of chicken broths that you buy in the grocery store, very high in sodium. So one nice thing about making your own, you can eliminate that and add more fresh herbs and pepper, things like that that don't have those extra sodium to it, but still gives you the flavor. So that's something we're going to be adding some peppercorns. The reason we kind of do more peppercorns in broth is because it draws out the flavor, but you're going to strain this later, so you're not going to be eating the whole peppercorn. It's just going to bring out the flavor of the peppercorn, where if you're making soups, you want to use ground pepper because you're not going to want to bite into one of these whole peppercorns when you're eating soup. We're also going to add a bay leaf to this. We're going to add some fresh parsley and fresh thyme. If you do not have fresh herbs available, we're using dried. You can use dried as well. And Dugan can kind of explain the difference between fresh and dried and how much to use, because there is a difference between the two.
Sure, absolutely. You're going to use a little bit less with the dried because what it is it's concentrated. It's been dried out. So a lot like your beefs and things like that, there's a higher concentration of flavor. So by using dried, say they tell you to add a 1/4 cup of fresh parsley. Well, instead of using a 1/4 cup of dried parsley, you're going to use less than that. You're going to use about half of that even. You're maybe 1/8 of a cup or a couple tablespoons, because you don't need that much. The flavor is concentrated in your dried herbs. So by using less, you're still going to get the same amount of flavor.
And that's something as well. I should show you. Today it looks like we're using a saucepan. For this, you'll probably want to use a large stock pan at home because you can make larger quantities of this. You can double, triple this recipe. That way you can freeze it later, you can can it later, and that's why you have some broth on hand, because if you think about a lot of recipes, they use a lot of vegetable beef or chicken broth that you'd have it in the freezer, or you have it canned ready on hand to use for other meals as well. That's quick and easy for you. And again, we're making our own. So again, we're avoiding adding all that sodium, making it a little bit more heart healthy for you. So we're going to let this simmer until it's done and cooking, and then we'll come back with the final product for you. Well, we're back, and I just kind of want to explain a little bit. We still have our chicken broth up here from when we explained it earlier, kind of about how it's going to steam for that 20 to 30 minutes, but in the process we did have some that was already done, and this is the final product of that chicken broth. So you can see it's very similar to what you buy in the grocery store. Again, it's just not going to have all that sodium in there. So we're going to be using that here in a little bit, but now we're going to transition over to making our chicken and vegetable soup. And the very first thing we need to work on is getting some oil hot in our pan, and we're going to cut up some peppers and some zucchini. So Dugan's going to actually explain some tricks about how to cut up a pepper and about the zucchini. So.
Yeah, the first step, like Jennifer said, is to heat your oil, add your peppers and zucchini. I'm just going to show you a real simple step here. This is a regular green pepper that you get at home. Or at the store, excuse me. What I'm doing is just slightly cutting through the top, the cap area here, and just moving the pepper in a circular pattern until I made it to the other side. As you can see, it's still connected to it from the middle part, but you're able to get your thumb in there and kind of feel around, get to the seed part, and then just pop it off. What this does, if you can see at home, there's only 2 seeds in there now. It skips a step for you, makes it very simple, so you don't cut the top off and dig your hands in there trying to get all the seeds out. What I do then is I get the membranes. I take my 2 fingers down at the bottom and I pinch it and just pull it out, real simple. And your pepper's ready to go. Good, easy thing to do. Stuffed peppers, your shell's already ready, and it just took a simple knife cut around it, and all your seeds are still connected to the top, and your shell's ready to go. So, but we're doing this for a chicken and broths, or a chicken and vegetable soup. So I'm cutting the bottom off, so I have a nice flat surface to work with, and then I'm just cutting square pieces, just going all the way around. And then I'm going to dice it. You can go up to maybe a 1/4 inch dice, however you want. I'm doing strips first, real simple. They're flat, so you can lay them flat on here and just go through and make strips. What I do after that is I just bundle them together and finish the dice, doing the same cut, about the same thickness, and then your peppers are ready.
And cutting skills wise, you can see he's keeping his fingers back so he's not cutting any finger, because again, that's a sharp knife after we just seen him cut up that chicken. So you want to be very careful with that. Again, if you have a dull knife, even for vegetables, you're more likely to get cut yourself as well.
We have our oil already heating. I went ahead and cut up some peppers and some zucchini already. The oil's about hot. You can start to smell it. Just real quick with the zucchini, it'll tell you in the recipe to cut it thin. You don't want it to be too thin, because if you cook it, zucchini gets soft. And you're going to boil it halfway through the process. You'll lose the entire middle part of the zucchini, so then all you have is the outer casing. So if you like zucchini, cut it a little thick, maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch. That way you've still got that texture and you're still going to have that flavor. I cut them in half moons just because it's easier to put on a spoon. You don't want to cut a big circle out of it, because then it's kind of difficult to put in your mouth once it's cooked. So first step here, we're just going to add this to our oil. Probably start sizzling.
Hear that? It means the oil's ready.
It's only going to be about a couple minutes. You just want it to get brown, get a nice color on it, because in the process of with the chicken broth and everything, it's going to cook the rest of the way. So it's going to get soft. You're just doing this to add flavor, to add color, just simple things like that.
Peppers, zucchini, they're non-starchy vegetables, meaning low in carbohydrates, low in calories. Also, I want to know it is winter months. Zucchini is a summer month vegetable, so it's something that it's not a fresh vegetable right now. Can you find zucchini in the grocery store? Yes, but they're probably going to be very little zucchinis. You can also buy frozen and put them in a soup as well. So it depends what you want to use, but it's a little bit harder to find them this time of year. You'll actually want to cook the peppers and the zucchini for about 2 minutes is what you're going to about need on that. After that, we're going to be adding the broth, the noodles, corn, water, and thyme. And we're going to increase it and then bring it to a boil. So since we're ready to add everything else, we're just going to add our chicken broth. Of course, this is something that we pre-made since ours is still broiling here for about 20-30 minutes. So we're going to add probably 1 cup and 3/4. You can 2 cups. We'll add that right into there. And Dugan will add some of the other things while I fill some of this up with water.
Sure. One of the ingredients that it tells you to add is thyme. With dried thyme, it's kind of like twiggy. It's very, I don't like the feeling in my mouth. So what I do with dried thyme, before I add it to any ingredient, is I'll pull it out and I'll kind of dice it up a little bit more. That way you're not getting the sticks. It's really simple. It takes no time at all. But you're also not going to get a piece of thyme stuck in your teeth that you're fishing around for, 2 hours later. So, all right, so that's ready. We're going to add that to our.
I'm adding my 1/2 cup of water as well.
Okay, there's our thyme.
I'm going to add some. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Dugan grabbed the noodles here, and they are actually no yolk noodles. So a lot of these egg noodles you add to a lot of chicken noodle soups, this chicken and vegetable soup. Being that those are no yolk means that it's coming with less cholesterol, which is going to be more heart healthy for us. So along with not adding any salt to this recipe, we're adding less cholesterol as well. So. And he added the corn in there as well.
So the next step in this recipe, you're going to want to cook your noodles. So you'll turn your temperature up to high and then kind of cook it like you would a regular packaged noodle, 9 to 10 minutes until it's soft and done. With this recipe, you're going to wait until the water starts boiling again and then just bring it down to a simmer. That way it'll slowly cook them instead of overcook them too fast, and then they'll get real chewy. So
yeah, we'll just simmer for about 10 minutes a little bit. So we'll talk about the additional ingredients we add at the end, because after that you're going to add whatever else you didn't add into this soup at the very end. So one of them Dugan kind of go into a little bit more detail is leeks. Leeks are something you're going to be adding to this recipe, and it's something that it's a very low calorie onion, more mild onion, and Dugan will go further in explanation about that. But it also is good in vitamin A, surprisingly, and has some iron in there as well, and also some vitamin C. So leeks are a very nice, healthy option to have. About a quarter cup of them is actually going to have some carbohydrates in there as well, about 13 carbs they typically say for about a half a cup to a quarter of a cup of the leeks. But Dugan can kind of explain them a little bit further.
like Jennifer said, it's leeks are from the onion family. If you've ever seen a leek before, it is identical to a green onion, just a lot bigger. It does not have the same onion flavor. It's not as powerful as an onion. So a lot of people, if they like the flavor of onion but don't like the onion themselves, they will use leeks instead. It's very mild. It's very thin, so you almost don't even know that it's in there, especially when you dice it up real fine, because it's so soft. It takes no time at all to cook. But yeah, it does have a nice mild flavor. You can use the white and the top part of the green. The very top part of the leek itself, you can discard. You can use it in stocks, things like that, but I wouldn't eat it. I would stick with the white, the bottom part down by the root. Well, while we're waiting on the noodles here, I want to show you something real quick. Our broth that we were making earlier is starting to develop a film on top. What you want to do, and you can see this at home, is you'll see the bubbles, you'll see the oils and all the fats kind of collecting at the top. What you want to do is get a spoon or a strainer, something that can skim the top of the surface really easy, and then just take it out of there. Put it in a cup, put it in a pot, anything like that. You're eliminating the fats. You've already got all the flavor out of it, so it's releasing to the top. So you're not going to miss anything. You're going to get rid of the oily texture. Like if you eat it or drink it, I guess later, you'll feel an oily texture on the top of your mouth. You haven't got all the fat out of it yet. So by slowly just skimming the fat off the top of the surface, you're going to eliminate that. So
now that our noodles are becoming soft, it's boiling, we're going to add the rest of our ingredients to the soup. What we're going to add is we're going to add a little bit of green onions, leeks, or onions. Again, it's your preference which one you would like to add. So we'll add some of those. We're going to add some parsley, and we're going to add some pepper. And this is when we're also going to add the chicken.
what's nice about chicken, like we were talking about earlier, you used chicken to make your broth. You can take the meat off the bone here and put it back into this soup and use it. Or if you want to use it for, say, chicken and noodles or something like that, like you have a home recipe that your grandmother gave you where that's what it calls for, is the chicken from the broth itself. That's fine. You've cut enough pieces off your whole chicken that you can use some of that, and that's what we're doing here. We saved the breasts and the tenderloins. They're still raw, but what's nice is we dice them into smaller pieces, more bite-sized pieces, and since they're that size, they only take about 3 to 4 minutes to cook all the way through, and then you're ready to go. So we're going to add that to our soup here.
So like Dugan was kind of explaining, you don't have to use your chicken breasts or your tenders if you want to put them in a freezer and save them for later. When you're done with your broth, before you even get to this part, and I know it's kind of, we're stepping ahead here, but you strain this, so you just have the broth itself. The rest of this you'll discard besides the chicken. You'll take the meat off that chicken, discard the bones, and keep the meat for later, and you could put that into the dish. But you're not going to be keeping the celery, the onions, the carrots from this because you strain it. You just keep the broth itself. And you might have to strain the broth quite a few times to get all this other discarded things out of there until you just have the juice. And that's what you freeze. That's what you will can. You discard the vegetables, but the meat off the chicken you can use yet.
About 3 or 4 minutes here. We're going to let the chicken cook, and then we'll be ready to serve chicken and vegetable soup.
That way our audience can sample the soup that we made. And again, the longest process of this all is probably the whole broth. Again, if you make it one day while you have some time, make a large batch, put it in the freezer. Making the soup can be done less than 30 minutes. It's something that can be done quite easy if you have all the ingredients right there ready to make. And again, that's great when we have busy schedules. And again, it's a nice comfort food for these winter months. Getting ready to serve the samples out to our live audience, there is the last step that we forgot to mention. It was that we added Parmesan cheese to this. It is the last kind of brings the flavor together. Parmesan cheese does have a little bit of sodium there, salt in there, that will add a little bit flavor to that. Not a lot, and again, it's a very low sodium soup that you're having. Also, we added a lot of different types of peppers and ground pepper, and also other seasonings. You can add whichever or how much amount you want to whatever taste you like. So if you like a lot of pepper in your dish, you can add a little bit more. If you don't like that strong pepper taste, you can back off. You don't have to exactly put the amount of herbs and seasonings that a recipe says to put in. You can put in what you like. And that's one nice thing about soups, because you can kind of change it up a little bit. Kind of off what we talked about, adding carrots, celery from the broth in here to make a little bit more vegetables. You can switch it up. You don't have to exactly follow that recipe, especially for soups. Thank you for tuning in to iHeart Cooking, a program that is funded by the American Heart Association. We hope you have enjoyed all the information and recipes that we provided for you today.
For more heart-healthy recipes, you can visit the American Heart Association's website at heart.org or reidhospital.org/iHeartCooking.
We'll see you next month.